mining market is huge here in Chile. That's why we didn't give up. The third time's a charm, as they say.
What are some of the lessons you've learned about doing business in Latin America?
First and foremost, you need to understand the market. Is there a market for your solution? What does the competitive landscape look like? Understanding what your customers want is extremely critical.
Today, I'm very excited to be sitting here with Todd Burns. Todd grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and he is the CEO of Cypher Environmental, a clean tech manufacturing company. Todd has been all across the world providing his product to mines, and we're very lucky here today to get your experience and ask you a few different questions. When you're looking for a local partner, what are the things that you're specifically kind of looking for?
Making sure that the core values are aligned, the experience is there, and
do you have sort of a strategy or a game plan that you follow every time you're entering a new market?
Of course, everything is 100% environmentally friendly. Very passionate about, not just Cypher and what we're doing there, but also blazing a road for other entrepreneurs to follow in my footsteps so they don't have to go through some of the challenges and struggles we did.
What are some of the unexpected challenges that you've had to face?
Well, unless you're doing your job properly, I can't do my job properly, and neither can the other, assets on the team.
Is there something that you could go back in time and say to yourself?
Tell myself to be, doesn't happen overnight.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Cody.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Todd, for the people that don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional history?
Sure. Where to begin? Well, truth be told, I took over maybe what you would refer to as a failing startup from my father upon his passing. So Cypher's been around for actually around 20 years, but I like to refer to myself as the founder of Cypher 2.0. Which was about 14 years ago, give or take a few months. And so I'm an entrepreneur through and through, very much so a bit of a tree hugger as well. So everything we do at Cypher is 100% focused on really playing a role in saving the world. Everything is 100% environmentally friendly. And so I'm very passionate about, not just Cypher and what we're doing there, but also, no pun intended, blazing a road or a path for other, entrepreneurs to follow in my footsteps, so they don't have to go through some of the challenges and struggles we did in introducing clean tech products, in Canada and around the world.
And how has the business changed from when you took over 14 years ago to now? Was it always based around this idea of being environmentally friendly, or has that changed over the years with your own thinking?
I think the focus initially was profits and roads. Of course, I know that we need to be profitable, but my whole focus is really, like I said, to create change in the world. And so when I took it over, there was no intellectual property. We were actually having another company's product private labeled for us. No employees. Literally, I was a one-man operation for a while there. Certainly not anymore. And no intellectual property, no warehouse, nothing. It was just an idea. So we started with I hired one team member and another. We developed the formula. We started manufacturing a couple of products. We're about to launch our third product onto the market now. And we have sales in approximately 50 countries around the world.
And so how is Cypher helping mines? What exactly do you guys do, and what is different from what is happening in the market?
Yeah, so if I was to explain it really easily, especially to somebody from Canada, everybody's familiar with the road salts we use for de-icing in Canada, which are horrible for the environment. That's why you buy a brand new car in Canada and 6 months or a year later, it's got rust on it already.
Yeah.
So those road salts are destroying the environment. They're horrible for groundwater. They kill roadside vegetation. And when used on concrete and in highly developed infrastructure, it actually creates what's called concrete spalling. So it's actually destroying the very infrastructure we're applying it to and spending millions or billions a year in developing. It's lesser known that those same road salts are used for dust control in the summer months. And so here they're referred to as bischofita. It's magnesium chloride in Canada, or bischofita here in Chile.
Yeah.
So bischofita is in widespread use here because it's actually a byproduct of lithium mining, which is the huge production of lithium here in the country.
Yeah.
And so it's used for dust control on roads. It's not very effective, especially in the really dry dry weather in the Atacama, for example, or in the north region of Chile, where a lot of mining is. And it attracts moisture to the road, and that's how it controls the dust. But when it gets rained on or water is applied to the road, it gets very slippery when it's wet. So it's a safety concern. And so that's our number one competitor here. Sadly, the number two competitor is oil.
Wow.
And somewhere in the mix would be water. And so a lot of these mines are driving around literally 24/7 with those massive haul trucks burning diesel and spraying water on the road. So we dramatically reduce water consumption because you don't need to spray it all day long anymore. Yep. Obviously, we're reducing diesel burn and carbon production. So we're helping with the decarbonization and reducing carbon footprint for mines. And it's a huge, operational efficiency. So they're saving money and they're improving productivity because when you're not having that huge cloud of dust behind a haul truck, they can drive faster and they can drive closer together because safety is less of a concern because the operators can actually see. And so ultimately, if I give the elevator pitch, I usually just say we're helping reduce operational costs and environmental footprint simultaneously through better road management.
Interesting. And so Cypher started in Winnipeg, Manitoba, of all places. And so I would like to understand how your business has grown. And from what I understand, it's very international at this point. So how much of your revenue is in Canada and how much is actually international?
Well, it's really changed over the years. This is maybe my 10th or 12th trip to Chile.
Wow.
I've been to 43 countries personally. If you looked at our books maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we would be 90% exports, 10% domestic sales. Wow. Now, because of our entry into mining, oil and gas, forestry, and aviation, we're using the same products to stabilize unpaved runways, especially in the north for a lot of our mining clients.
Yeah.
The tables have turned a little bit. So we are selling a lot more to private industry in Canada. And so, right now it'd probably be about a 50-50 split. We're still selling all over the world, but of course, being Canadian, we have a lot of exposure in Canada and we're doing quite well in Canada.
Excellent. And in terms of international markets, where would we find Cypher today?
Well, all over South America. I mean, certainly here in Chile. We have some amazing partners here, by the way, distribution partners. We have 2 of them. So in mining, they're referred to as BILAC or mining, a division of BILAC, Mining Dust Solutions. BILAC is one of the largest mine supply companies in Chile. It's a 4th generation family company with very similar core values and corporate culture to us. So the fit was immediate. But we have sales, in Peru, Brazil, Mexico, numerous countries in Africa, China, the Middle East. So like I said, we're all over the world.
Wow. That's really amazing. And I think that's a big win for a Canadian company. In terms of doing business, you mentioned you'd been to Chile 14 times. I believe this is your 14th trip.
I've lost track. But
yeah, but I'm sure more. But, in terms of what are some of the lessons you've learned about doing business in Latin America in general compared to Canada? It'd be interesting to see if you had any advice for other companies that are looking to come into the market.
Well, I mean, I think you need to understand the market first and foremost. I mean, is there a market for your solution? What does the competitive landscape look like? Understanding what your customers want. There's always the choice to go direct and try to sell direct. Or work with a local partner because in many cases they want to have some local value add in the supply chain. And in Chile, that's definitely the case. We find that, there's, as Canadians, there's a language barrier. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but usually only enough to order a drink or ask where the bathroom is, but I'm working on that. But we find that a lot of the mines here want to actually work with local partners. And so we have distributors. We actually have 2 I mentioned before. So we have one for mining. Yeah. And we have another one called E&A Engineering, and they're focused on all their sectors. So, forestry, which is a huge forestry industry here. Renewables, we just did a 6-kilometer project for a wind farm in La Serena, which is a little north of Santiago. Yeah. And so we find that leveraging their contacts, their network, their understanding of the cultural ways of doing business here has been a huge asset for us. And so that's been the target for us here in Chile.
And so obviously you've chosen for your path for your business is to have local partners. And so when you're looking for a local partner, what are the things that you're specifically kind of looking for in those introduction stages? Is there anything particular?
Well, there's got to be that cultural fit. Like I mentioned, we're actually on our 3rd go of a distributor in the mining industry here. The last one, after working together for a couple of years, it was a very significant clash in terms of our values, our core values. So that value-based system is extremely important. Beyond that, there's certainly something to be said about having a company exclusively focused on your product. And so like I mentioned before, Biolac created a division called Mining Dust Solutions, which is exclusively focused on sales of Cypher products. What you don't want to be is just a SKU number or an item in a catalog where, there's the distributor is selling 100 or 1,000 different products and they chase the low hanging fruit that day. And maybe you're the second or third or fourth or last, focus for the day. And, you're not really going to make significant progress penetrating the market. It depends on what your technologies are and
Exactly.
how complex they are. But for us, I think finding the core value and the experience level too. And so, we don't want someone who has nothing to do with roads or nothing to do with mines. How are they going to actually make a splash and create market share for us? And so our distributor, for example, to give you, to understand why we chose them, they actually retread tires, those massive mine haul truck tires that you see. So they can do it up to 4 times.
Yeah.
And so their focus is reducing carbon footprint of mining through, recycling and reusing tires. And by making the tires, in higher performance or properly performing tire, it translates exactly to what we're doing on roads. Because when we make a road more stable and enhance the engineering properties, we reduce something called rolling resistance.
Perfect.
So when the haul truck is driving over the surface, there's less friction between the road and the tire. So the haul truck actually becomes more fuel efficient. I didn't mention that before in my description. And so obviously it would make sense to work with someone who, works with those tires as well. And it wedded the two technologies together to really enhance the impact we're having on the sort of decarbonization process in mining.
And so the process of going through different partners and then finding the right partner, and it sounds like now you have the right partner. How big of a difference does that make in terms of getting your product into the mine and actually being able to grow sales? It'd be interesting to hear your perspective on sort of that process.
Yeah, it's significant. I mean, they already have all the right connections, but they're also talking to the right people at the mines that are interested in our technology. So, the mining market is huge here in Chile. That's why we didn't give up. I mean, the third time's the charm, as they say. And so
good for you. Congratulations.
We found the right fit now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, making sure that like I said before, the core values are aligned. The experience is there and the vision is there, because you need to have a vision. When you're growing a company, you need to be able to see, not just 6 months or a year out, but in 5 years and 10 years, where we're going to be and how we're going to get there, and creating that roadmap. And so finding the right partner who has an aligned vision with you is extremely critical. I mean, talking about the market here is huge. I mean, I don't know of any other, center in the world that has, such a robust and significant mining industry.
Wow.
So for us as an organization, like beyond Canada, our 3 main targets in the world are Chile, South Africa, and Australia.
Yeah. Because
there's the same, that same sort of massive cluster of mines. As Canadians, we probably think of, Sudbury or Fort McMurray maybe, which is not really mining the oil sands. They dig, they don't blast, but they're still using big haul trucks. And we sell a lot in both of those regions as well. But as far as like actual international destinations to focus on, we've chosen Chile as a major focal point. And eventually we'd like to actually start manufacturing here as well to, again, reduce the carbon footprint of getting our product here. And of course, being a little more cost effective logistically for our clients.
That's really, really interesting. And once you find the right partner and you're working with them, what is sort of the way that you keep that relationship moving forward and that everyone feels supported? Is there any particular way that you like to work with your partners?
I think it's just that shared investment. The distributor Biolac or Mining Dust came up to Vancouver for CIM this year to spend some time with us. I'm actually planning on being back here in possibly 2 weeks' time as well. So it'll be my 6th visit in 2 years. And so I think it shows our dedication to the market. And so like I said before, we really want to see that, alignment of values, but also alignment of commitment and investment in making sure that the relationship is mutually beneficial. Because it's just benefiting us or just benefiting them, there's no future there. And so we need to make sure that we all understand, again, what the path forward is, how we're going to work together, how we're going to cooperate, and how we're going to create that aligned vision for us to make the mining industry more sustainable, bottom line.
it's a true partnership, because in the end, you're both investing into the relationship, them coming up to Canada and also the trips that you're making to here.
Exactly.
That's great. In terms of growing your business internationally, whether it's Latin America or South Africa or Australia, what are some of the unexpected challenges that you've had to face?
Well, the competitive landscape. We always need to know who our competitors are, like I mentioned earlier, and adapt a little bit accordingly, whether it's our marketing plan, the messaging, or just, how we're going to market and how we're presenting ourselves. But logistics is obviously a major thing to consider. We're shipping product from Canada, so it's a long distance. And so, there's when I talk about understanding the competitive landscape, making sure our distributors, for example, are willing to commit to stocking inventory in the country, because, there's always that sort of hurry up and wait mentality, whether you're in Chile, South Africa, or Australia. And then when we need the product, we need it yesterday. And so making sure we can deliver. And so lead times is something to really be focused on, making sure you have product available when your customers need it. And just understanding the landscape of the country. What we do in the north of Chile, in Atacama, might be something, different than what we're doing at a mine that's located here closer to Santiago within a completely different climate type. And so, but that's why there's the significant importance of having those local partners who can teach you about that and take care of that for you. So you don't have to worry about what's happening on the ground here. You worry about just, making sure that you're continuing to deliver high quality, high performance products.
Absolutely. And in terms of, there's a lot of business owners that are looking to grow their company. And I'm curious to know if over the years you've had to take outside investment in order to grow your company, or how have you been able to do it?
Organically. Yeah, no, it's quite the interesting story. I mean, at some point I remortgaged my house. I borrowed money from my parents, but we've taken which has been paid off, by the way. But we've had no outside investors whatsoever. So my concern is bringing on a partner and giving up some equity in the company. You also give up control. You lose that value-based system. And for us, values are extremely, extremely important. So we don't want to give up equity in the business, because it means, potentially we're not going to be able to run the business with the same types of values that we do today. And that's really what continues to drive the business forward, is the passion that every team member brings to the table. I always talk to the team about understanding your role, and how your role, whether you think it's big or small in the organization, is significant, because unless you're doing your job properly, I can't do my job properly, and neither can the other, assets on the team. And trust. I mean, when I leave on these trips, like I said, when I come back in a couple of weeks, it'll be my 6th visit to Chile in the last 2 years.
Wow.
And so there needs to be immense trust within the organization, so that I know when I'm gone that they're running the business properly. And so that trust has to naturally evolve between every single team member, to know that the person they're relying on, they can trust that they're doing their job properly, so that they can do theirs. It seems simplistic, but I mean, it's true.
Absolutely. And in terms of, when we look at growing our business and having cash to fund, as you've done, how important has sales really been to that? I mean, do you have a very sales oriented approach, or how are you growing revenues? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, without sales, we wouldn't have a business today. And so I'm very business development and sort of focused CEO.
Yeah.
And so again, I have trust in the people that are more risk averse in the organization, to make sure that I'm not spending too much money, or that the company is bringing the money in, and that we have that nest egg required to always be, focused on production, focused on, having the inventory, so when we get an order, we're ready to ship it and deliver on a timely basis. And so it's absolutely critical. And so, we have a very strong brand. It's a Canadian brand, but it's very well known that we're international. We speak all the time about the significance of what we're doing, on the core focus of sustainability and saving people money. Because after COVID, after everyone talked about pivoting, wearing masks, working from home, all that stuff, we were talking before that about sustainability and cost savings. And now that the COVID period is over, the pandemic is over, the focus is on net zero and the economy. And so that's, we've been talking about that for years now. And so it's really starting to show in the seeds that we planted before and after the pandemic in terms of what we're growing generically in terms of revenues. And we're as a Canadian would say, we're back on that, sort of upwards hockey stick growth curve as a result.
Congratulations. And in terms of when you're going into new markets, typically, who are the stakeholders or partners that you would speak with first when it's a new market? Do you have sort of a strategy or a game plan that you follow every time you're entering a new market?
Well, we always like to leverage our boots in the ground, so to speak. So those eventually become our distributors. But prior to that, we're talking usually to the Trade Commissioner Service, the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service. They're phenomenal in terms of introducing us to the right people and guiding us in terms of, what a strategy might look like, what the landscape is in the country, and potentially facilitating introductions to the partners that we eventually work with. Now, not always the case, but certainly is something we always try to highly leverage.
Excellent. And where do you see Cypher in 5 years from now?
Well, like I said, we're on that hockey stick upwards growth curve. So we'll be moving our main production facility out of Winnipeg. Love Winnipeg. I was born and raised there, but it's the center of Canada, and we need to get closer to a port because we're shipping so much internationally. So that's going to be the first iteration of the new face of Cypher. We are in the process of commercializing a 100% non-corrosive, environmentally friendly alternative to salt for de-icing. I just talked about dust control before, but we're getting into de-icing as well. And I believe we're going to have production hopefully in those 3 major centers I talked about earlier as well. So, here in Chile, potentially in South Africa and Australia.
Amazing. And in terms of when you started the company, you said you were using another product and stuff. So research and development, what is sort of your mindset around investing into new products, new research, new things that are coming? How big of that is part of your business?
It's critical. You always have to get ahead of the curve. We have a VP of research and development. Her job is specifically to run the technical team in our lab. So we have our own lab where we do our own research. Of course, Canada is as a Canadian, technology firm or innovative firm, we're blessed to have a great support system in terms of, organizations like MyTax and IRAP and NSERC that allow us to actually partner with local universities and colleges to leverage their expertise and their main lab equipment that we may not have in our lab to do some of that innovation and research. And so it's so for us, it's very critical. I mean, beyond just the whole innovation piece, it's also that the trust that our customers, I talked about trust earlier, the trust that our customers have in us to deliver a high quality product. And so, we keep batch samples of all of our products. We test them routinely in the lab to make sure that they're meeting the specifications and performance characteristics that we're promising to our customers to ensure that they're getting the highest level of ROI or return on investment in our technologies. And so that sort of that research piece, the R&D piece is critical.
Perfect. My last question, you've learned a lot of lessons over the years. I like to say we've probably seen the good, the bad, and the ugly over time. What would be a lesson that you would give the younger self? Is there something that you could go back in time and say to yourself?
Well, I would tell myself to be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. As they say, Rome wasn't built overnight, and neither was any organization or any business. And so just being patient, having the perseverance to see it through. Luckily, I've had that. Now I'm really into mindfulness. I have a mindfulness coach. I meditate all the time and just staying focused, staying present, and just tackling one thing at a time. Because if you let your mind wander and get distracted, it's very difficult to see what's right in front of you and what needs to get done in order to advance to the next level. It's
a great lesson because in today's world, patience is not always the easiest thing. We're very used to getting things in the moment that we wanted. So sometimes it's good to hear from someone like yourself that's a key piece of being successful is learning that patience. So thank you, Todd, for your time today. I really appreciate
my pleasure.
Speaking with you and learning about Cypher and your growth.
Yeah.
So thank you.